Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugs, aka White Boy D Voice, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. It's good to see everybody in here, and I'm sure this might be a surprise to everybody. Luckily, I was actually, unfortunately, I was awake actually late into the night last night, so I did see in real time. No joke, I actually sat down for maybe a little bit to try to play that new game, the Ark Raiders one, late last night. And I checked my phone for a second, and we were bombing the absolute living hell out of Venezuela. And so I was paying attention to that. And obviously I was following along. And I think just in general, I think I'm still kind of awe-inspired, awe-captured by just seeing bombs like that go off. And I noticed, I was just contrasting it compared to like the bombing of what we see from Israel and Gaza and over in the Middle East, and just you can see the power difference in there too. But obviously it's insane. And so there's a lot to get into with this. There's a group of narratives kind of that have culminated around this overall topic. People kind of guessing what is the reason? Why did we bomb Venezuela? And I think most people were already well past the idea that like we're bombing them for their drug involvement and for fentanyl. I think everybody kind of ran the numbers on that immediately. That was kind of the pretext. That's what they were saying to kind of give the people, the Americans at home, give them the sentiment of like, oh, this is okay. We're doing this for a good reason. We're fighting the bad guys for drugs bad. Ultimately, though, that doesn't rack up. And it's more so that it's like kind of it's like a travel state. There's a specific kind of way that they have terminology for this, but that's not really what the case was. More so, the case is that they wanted regime change. Now, the question is why did they want the regime change? And there's two kind of really competing narratives there. I'm based off of all the preponderance of evidence and the pattern of behavior so far, I'm inclined to believe the Israel did it before anything else. And so we always have to throw that out there. But there's two kind of competing ones. And to be fair, they can coincide in a good amount too. You have the one which is just kind of on its face, which is remove the pretext. This was regime change because we wanted to shore up our hegemony, our power, our resources here in our own domain, in our hemisphere, which coincidentally, even despite all of everybody's kind of being angry at the bombing, would actually coincide with an America First move. That would be an America First agenda, although it does go against promises made during the campaign. If that would be the reason, if that's the official reason, then that would fall in line with the America First agenda. However, on the other side of that, what we quickly see literally in the moments following after is they're planning to install this dissident lady. Her name is like something Mania, something Machado, Globo Homo girl, who is, girl boss, whatever. But also the main point that a lot of people are pointing out right now, which is she's a pro-Zionist. She's openly talking about, in 2024, how she wants to move the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, or move their Venezuelan embassy to Jerusalem. So you have all these kind of competing ideas of what is the real reason. And I think even before this, though, most people just look at the fact that Netanyahu made his millionth visit to the White House this year alone, and in 72 hours later, we are bombing Venezuela. So that's kind of what these competing elements are. And so you do have one that does look a bit more into the resources, the oil element, specifically in the lens of why they would want the Zionist installment there. And also, in the same level, what can't be missed is the fact that how these two narratives can coincide. It's a question really of like the nuance of the splits at the top. of who really was making the call here. But I think most people already have a strong idea of who made that call here, and I tend to believe that too. Now, what we know though is this was actually supposed to happen 4 days ago, and it didn't. And now I believe that they had said something along the effect of the weather was bad, and so it happened last night instead. Now, one of these narratives that's kind of running here that's kind of wild is actually that there was supposedly the report is that there was Chinese officials in Venezuela who were set to meet simply, like, I think it was 4 hours before the bombs dropped. There were Chinese officials in Venezuela. Now, I don't know if they were caught in the crossfire or what the reports are the extent of that. More so, maybe they were just present there and none of them were harmed. I saw Owen Schroyer talk about that a little bit, and so hopefully that's just a bit of coincidence. And I would imagine that wouldn't have even happened had it happened on the original day, 4 days ago. So that plays a role to it as well. But what we got from Trump in the press conference was now he's threatening the Colombian president. And now where a lot of people have kind of already stepped back and kind of put hands off, I had seen this from Nick Freitas, and I didn't catch this until I was looking back into it because I was hit or miss, between my child and my wife and watching the news. That the plan is to install Hegseth, Rubio, and the U.S. military to lead Venezuela and essentially run Venezuela while the transfer of power is occurring. Now, I would be remiss if I said I understand how the transfer of power is going to go. It seems to me that there is still a lot of elements in the Venezuelan regime that are still attached to Maduro, and I think there's one defense minister in particular that I think he had even made extended threats to as well. So I don't think the job is finished per se. However, just like you saw in the thumbnail, Maduro was captured. He was put on, I think it was called the Jiwa or Jinwu or whatever the name of that helicopter is, and flown back. And so this photo's been going viral. Major Orlos, what people have been saying. He's like in these Nike gray sweats. He's like got his hands out. He's like, To be fair though, he fought. Maduro did fight to the end, but Maduro's season unfortunately is over. And honestly, kind of just a testament to the loyalty of his team there. Although they didn't stand up much of a fight to the United States, obviously, there was still an element of the fact of he was a force to be reckoned with for a period of time simply because he did command loyalty. And I think that's kind of one of these elements here too. When you just look at it on its face, is here's the American liberal global homo establishment taking and uninstalling this alpha male Maduro guy, and our plan is to replace him with this female girl boss Zionist. And it's like, just on the surface, you take all the details out, it's like you just look at it, it just simply looks more like the continuation, the next rung on the ladder of here's more gay bullshit. And so obviously he threatened the Colombian president. They're going to plan to install this weird transfer of power. Now that's pushing people back. And the reason why I brought up Nick Freitas, right? Nick J. Freitas or whatever his name is. He posted this thing talking about how he was all in on the Venezuelan strike, but now he's hands off because of all of the kind of the rhetoric around it now and running Venezuela. And even Nick Fuentes had come out today now, and I think even in the early portions, he was posting like the American flag and he was in initial support of it in general. But the rhetoric afterwards has now pushed people back some, and the rhetoric comes very close to nation building. And if we are going to be in the business of nation building, that ultimately is what failed in the Middle East, and that is the opposite of America first. And so overall, you have like these two perceptions, and we're going to go through a stream of all this. We're just going to react to everything that's been coming out here in a second, but just to give you an opener here. And then the two perceptions that you have one that is this just the general, no new wars. We didn't vote for bombing. We didn't vote for regime change. But that's the one that I care less about, to be honest with you. The one that I care more about is the other more important perception, which is what people are seeing is like, look how quickly and efficiently the American government was able to enact regime change. Now, they say the plan took months in effect, but they still carried it out, and it was very powerful, top level power showing. Look how they'll do this for Venezuela. And even the rhetoric afterwards, they're freeing the Venezuelan people. We're making things better for the Venezuelan people. We're gonna bolster life and the infrastructure and the economy for Venezuelans. And people at home are going, so what about us? When do we begin to prosper? When does the American government begin to do things? When are we going to start? When are we going to bomb, Minnesota Section 8 housing? And I think that's some of the very important, perception, which is it's more so the continuation of the anger that is like, when is it our turn? When are we going to get what we voted for? When is it going to be our turn? The people who actually, we pay the taxes, we show up to the voting booths, we support you, we take the flag for it. When is it our turn to receive a benefit for installing you as the president? And that day is yet to come. So this is going to be just the general reaction to everything that we have coming out so far, just to give you an opener of some of the basics here of what's been happening. I'm going to flip it over to here. And so this is kind of the stream that we have here, and obviously this large-scale operation. Now, Trump, I believe he had said he watched it from Mar-a-Lago or something to that effect, the same way he watched the Iran strikes. But this is the photo here. Nicolas Maduro on board the USS Iwo Jima. I'll make this a bit bigger so we can see it better. But this photo, people have been saying oral loss, but it's just kind of a weird photo. I would imagine he's probably just like, if anything, he might have just shat his pants. To be like literally quite honest with you, maybe that's why he's in the gray suits and stuff like that. But just to show you some of the bits of the rhetoric here. This is just them, the White House talking about, wow, powerful display and incumbents in American history. And so it's a kind of the show of force. The one thing I would say, though, is there was a portion from Owen Schroyer, and that's mainly who I caught earlier today talking about this, was one of the things that he was talking about was how even, how despite how similar this makes him to like Joe Biden and Bush and all the other previous presidents, Obama even, and despite him still almost being marginally more transparent, like none of it matters because and then still like you get this very kind of soulless vibe from the podium that this is like that you're not even hearing a human being speak as a president. You're hearing simply just the extension of what the machine is, right? That this is the head that is mouthed at the top. And that's not to be like in a generic sense, like, oh, he's a puppet, but it's to say like, that is just like the vibe and the feeling you get when you're listening to these things. It's very tone deaf. And this also, again, goes to the overall feeling, the vibe, which is nothing about the public sentiment or the outrage is like permeating anywhere. It's almost like you can chimp out and be angry all you want, but it's like it's very hard to get any of that to permeate. And if you do, it's only on very minor things. And this, again, another extension of like, are they just like turning off all social media? Do they not, or they just simply not care what people are going to say to the aftermath? And that is, I think, one of the other shining elements to many people pointing out, which is people like Clint Russell and others. He's almost just running with it. Like they know there's no point in even spending any oxygen or time running cover or saying like, oh, he's not a controlled Zionist puppet, yada, yada. So they're just like, let's just do whatever we want now. And maybe that's honestly better. Maybe more things will actually get done. Despite them all being done for Israel, these things will be getting done, I guess. Maybe though, unfortunately, that's probably just more bad. And so you just have this stream of just more and more just general discontent, anger. And to be quite honest with you, like I just mentioned it a short second ago, but I really am not. Obviously, I get the whole idea of being angry if you did vote for him for no new wars and he voted for him to like not bomb things and not nation build. I totally get that. I'm more so like in the pragmatic sense of like, there's certain, I'm quickly recognizing there seems to be a big portion of things we just simply are falling out of control. And so it's like at the bare minimum, it's like the one thing I think we should hone in on is the fact of like, look how they will do anything for anyone but the American people. Less so concerned about like oh, he said he wouldn't do any new wars type element, but more so like, why don't you help us, like the American people, your citizenry, not the citizenry of Venezuela? So we have this here from Attorney General Pam Bondi. She says, Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. On behalf of the entire U.S. Department of Justice, I would like to thank President Trump for having the courage to demand accountability on behalf of the American people, yada, 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 yada. And so this is kind of what you're getting here. Now, wild to think that they're trying him and charging him almost immediately, but I think they would have I think they had all the charges ready to go. They're just going to walk him through and put the cuffs on him, put him in prison. Curious what president will end up even going to, or like what the play out will be there. I really don't expect any kind of retaliation from Venezuela either. That the retaliation element wouldn't be coming from Venezuela, and I really doubt it would be coming from Iran. If anything, it would be like China, but I don't know what China would do. I don't think China would do anything kinetically. And I do think, like, and specifically going to the Chinese officials, that's one thing we should just look up real quick. Because I saw the report a few hours ago. But I would believe it was about 4 hours. Chinese official crossfire. And so this is one I saw from Finance Law. Chinese officials are apparently caught in the crossfire as they arrived for Venezuela government meetings 4 hours ago. And so obviously some people are reacting to that. So who knows how true that is? That's the only thing I've seen from that. So I'm sure we'll need to wait to see. And that's what I would see as well too. Like, I think for a lot of this, it's going to be a bit of wait and see. A bit of wait and see in terms of what this transfer of power really like means, what it will actually look like, how long or is America, and because that'll end up being the question, right? 15 days or so the spread, because what if it turns into that again? You know, in 15 days, Machado will transfer the power over to Machado. Oh no, in 15 more days, we'll surely transfer the power over to Machado. And it's not to say, like, would I be ultimately upset if, like, we just literally made Venezuela a vassal state and all of a sudden the United States got bigger? Only if that was paired with, like, the full-blown exploitation of the resources, meaning, like, we have 25 cents a gallon gas. You know, if we were getting, like, that level of economic benefits from making Venezuela a vassal state, then it's like, okay, right? Like, okay. But if it turns into this kind of weird power jig where all of a sudden we're just funneling money into Venezuela to bolster Venezuela, because that's what I fear. Ultimately, I fear is what we'll see in the coming months is all of a sudden now, after we bomb them, we're going to all of a sudden, here's a $1.2 billion aid package to Venezuela to help bolster Machado during the transfer of power, you know, and then getting more of that, right? And so it's just unfortunate because it does come to in line with the fact of if this running kind of theory on the back end of what's a lot of people fear is what's driving a World War III is that there is this kind of run on things like silver and other minerals and other resources. Well, I mean, what's the alternative? The alternative is that we continually send money in billions of dollars over while we continually drip and lose any economic ability at all over in America. And that's worse for the American people. It's like, so on top of your government serving all of the interests of Israel and only Israel, you would now be having like $7 gas and also houses cost $4 bajillion. And so it's like, it just becomes a question of like, I mean, what are you willing to tolerate, right? What are you willing to do with? And also at the same time, like, there does come a level of, I do get the whole point of like just simply not wanting to be involved with the war in general. But at the same time, like that's just simply that's not realistic. You know, like it's realistic to be isolationist to a certain degree, but it's hard to be an isolationist nation like when you are the world power and when you do have your hands involved so many things like, you know, globally. And so it's just to say like pragmatically, there are things where it's like, not to give a defense at all of the administration, but to say, regardless of who would have been in there, if these are the levers that are like you are looking against, it's like I would have probably bombed Venezuela too. Not if it was Bibi Netanyahu telling me to because we need a more Israeli friendly regime. If that's the case, then it's no. But if it's the case of we are in a dire need for China overtaking all hemispheres and we're about to lose our hegemonic ability to maintain, then it's a different question. So it's like, but that's the thing. So like, we got to see more of this play out. We got to see more of the rhetoric come out. Ultimately, like it's over for Maduro. Like Maduro's not going to be coming to power. There's not going to be some liberal judge who gets him off on charges or whatever. And that's probably part of it too. They probably already planned to give him to a judge who they knew was like, it's already all biased. So I doubt, and the thing is, he's not even entitled to a jury among his peers. You don't get those rights when you're a foreigner, when you're a foreign leader. In fact, we just throw him in jail and say whatever, you know, kick the key, like flick it across the room. And so it is just, it's more of this kind of full-blown kind of negative energy towards the Trump administration. Now, some people are enjoying it. I think overall it is more of like this kind of negative reaction because it's all nullified. Every ounce of it is nullified by the fact that we just a couple of days before you have Somalian daycare fraud. People are just dealing with rampant degeneracy across the board. That's why it's very nullified. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's like that meme where, you know, it's like Trump and Pam Bondi are like high-fiving at the top of the pool, but at the bottom, like the skeleton chained is like the American people. It's like we're not getting anything for it, unless it is anything beyond, or unless it is revolved around the resource and minerals. And like I'd seen from Dave Riley, you know, I think his post was something along the lines of, we better have like 10-cent gas a gallon by tomorrow morning. But to show you and show you where Nick was at on this, this is so you know he was USA like when it was occurring, Generation Keynes. But then in the follow up, after seeing the rhetoric from the press conference, this is what we got from Nick. And so he says, initially seemed like a solid operation to cleanly, bloodlessly, and quickly remove Maduro from power last night. But this new policy of running Venezuela with U.S. soldiers sounds like a massive overcommitment. I have zero confidence in nation building. Big mistake. And that's what Trump said. Trump said he's not afraid of boots on the ground. And I think even if I were to go to the homepage, it's probably one of the top things. And so, and here's one. Here's from Rich Barris. Here's a quotation from Trump. We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure. And then OMG, I can hear the voters in interviews now. What about our infrastructure? That's what we're going to hear. And it's true. I mean, like the rhetoric overall is overwhelmingly just miserable. And I had bookmarked a couple things beforehand, one from Timothy Gordon, I believe. And so this is for Timothy Gordon. He's Catholic. He does a pretty good job with streams and such. I like him a lot. Yeah, Rules for Retrograde show. And he says that the incoming American puppet government in Venezuela, Maduro's replacement Machado, is a strong Zionist. The Maduro regime favored and funded Hezbollah. That's the point. And then, of course, here we can see her Zayo shilling for about 26 seconds, but this is the supposed next installation of who they would like to be leading Venezuela.
I would like to thank Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
I promise one day we'll have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel.
I myself look forward to visit the State of Israel as soon as we conquer freedom. We will prevail.
And I can announce this, that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem.
I like that, the James Dokes music. You know, when you think somebody's gay, it's a black dude. He's like sniffing you out. But yeah, and so there you have it. Israel conquers the United States, and they now own Venezuela. And this is all for the benefit of the Jewish state. It does kind of seem kind of AI. I did get that a little bit. But I've already read earlier when I was looking up stuff. I saw verbatim some of her quotation about moving the embassy. So it is just rather unfortunate that this is going to be what is surrounding everything. And ultimately, you know, this is hilarious. Somebody even said Dr. Disrespect earlier in the chat. I didn't even make that connection, but that literally is. That's crazy. You can see his little avatar right there. Hey man, he was a fanboy. Maduro was a fan of Dr. Disrespect. That's funny. But I thought I had another bookmark in here I wanted to check for just a second, but just reacting to the overall what's happening here. And so you have this. You know, here's more takes, very similar. The difference between Maduro and the new leader of Venezuela will be their support of blank. Clint Russell, you know, indeed. And so that kind of brings us to where I think most people are just overall tired of it. Now, this I think will unfortunately rally a bit of like the base back, just because that's typical. That's like status quo. He'll get the boost from the mainstream media. This is like known as like the what is it called? The presidential bump. There's like a term for it, but it was like Tim Pool referenced this all the time in like 2021. I can't remember what year this actually occurred. It wasn't 2021. I don't remember when he had referenced it, but it was one of the times that that Donald Trump had sent Tomahawk strikes, and despite the entire time the media had been like overwhelmingly just negative of him. You know, Donald Trump can't do anything right, Orange Man bad, yada yada. And like nowadays, like I would agree, like who gives a shit anymore? But back then it was like literally anything. But when he tomahawk striked, I think Syria, it was, they came out and they were like, CNN was like, wow, Trump finally makes a presidential move. It was like all of the big news places who had been like, you know, dumping on him for the entire time he'd been running up through his campaign into his presidency. They stop when he bombs people. They're like, wow, thank you. Like CNN's like clapping for him. Good job. This is great. That's awesome. So just in general, I mean, it's typical. Historically, presidents do get approval bumps from stuff like this. And so I would expect it. One thing that I saw that was funny too was Mel, Village Crazy Lady, who again featured on Zeb Boykin's stream and podcast not too long ago. She had been making the point as well that look at all of these repeal the 19th bros clapping like seals for Maduro to be deposed so this Zio show girl can be installed, this girl boss. And that I agree, like just on its face. And I'm becoming a very big ethos guy. Like I'm not going to probably be a looks maxer by any means, like, because I'm just like, I don't have it in me and I'm too old and I'm a boomer. But I am very, and people know this, or they go into anything of those no more fat nationalist things in my Discord. I'm very huge on ethos. I think it matters a lot. I think it's only one of the few things that do matter anymore. I think that's actually why the looks maxers kind of dominate, like in the current trends right now. And I think we'll see more of that. But it's in the ethos of just no matter what the reason was, I do feel like I cannot cheer on a man being removed to empower and install a woman. Like on the very like just like surface of it, it's like there's something just about the energy that feels wrong, right? And so, you know, it's just it's unfortunate because I think we're going to get a good bit of good from it, but also overwhelmingly bad as well too. And so again, I'm going to hold a lot of my opinions on it, just reserve until we see more from it. But I do agree with Nick. The rhetoric directly afterwards was very deflating, and it felt very directed and almost like it was very specific to a point of aligning and letting it be, like placing the ramp for when the next move is made. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping this is not the nation building 2.0. Now, the thing is like if it was, I mean, Afghanistan happening a couple of thousand miles away from our border is a lot better than Afghanistan happening literally halfway across the world. I think that the locale and the strategy of it militarily and defense-wise does matter a lot more, specifically when you do look at it from a BRICS alliance standpoint. And if Venezuela is getting a lot more friendly with China starts putting military bases across Venezuela and they start expanding into the southern hemisphere, starts being a real different case. But again, we allow China to buy land here, so at the end, what does it really matter? What is the actual kind of pushback for it? So going back to what we have here on this, and this is going to be, obviously this isn't even like a offensively accurate episode. This is going to be a lot more casual, because a lot of things are happening in real time, but to just go back and react to some of this stuff happening here. This is one thing that I think a lot of people need to, just to be known that like the pretext of the drug trade aspect of it is a complete bullshit. But this is from Tom Hennessy, and Tom Hennessy's a great account on X. I would definitely follow him if I were you. But he's already writes, quick facts. Where do illegal drugs entering the U.S. come from? Top 10 countries by role in the U.S. illicit drug supply chain, all major drugs, fentanyl, meth, cocaine, and heroin. Number 1 is Mexico. Number 2 is Colombia. Number 3 is Peru. Number 4 is Bolivia. Number 5 is China. And that's what it is. The fentanyl precursors. That's what so the fentanyl originates from China, and then it is flowed through all the other precursor states, thusly the cartels are the one giving drugs. Because again, when's the last time you were sold drugs by a Chinese man? Again, point made. Number 6 is Ecuador. Number 7 is Guatemala. Number 8 is Panama. Number 9 is Honduras. Number 10 is El Salvador. Venezuela is outside of the top 10, and they have no production of fentanyl, meth, or heroin. I don't think it's a 0% rule. I think it's like a 1 or 2% rule. But they primarily are just operate as they're a travel state or a travel nation. Drugs flow through them, not from them. And so here, we might as well take a listen to this. This is a 2-minute clip here of Donald Trump saying that we will be running the country of Venezuela. So you can hear it from his own words himself.
We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So,
before he continues, one small point. This is what actually kind of blew me away on the whole thing. He came out afterwards saying we have to do something about Mexico too, or Mexico next. I can't remember the language there, but he did mention Mexico as being a target, actually.
We don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela. And that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland.
And what do you think Americans want to do? Right? Like, do you think we don't want like freedom and liberty, and like we don't want to overthrow our overlords, which are a bunch of, the Jewish diaspora and Israelis? Like, do you think we would not want those same things? Like, man, I wish I could get some of that Venezuela freedom. Right? But it's just tone deaf. Like I said earlier, it's tone deaf. And I do fear that too. What Hook has been saying earlier, I do fear like the Venezuelan refugees, and we've already been getting a bunch of them coming through. And I know people, if you're in certain categories, you probably already deal with Venezuelans, depending on like where you work at. I know certain areas are affected a lot more, but it is more of the same.
Can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time.
Now, again, I can only assume that this delay of the transfer of power is simply because there are still Maduro loyalists in the regime. It's not like it's been completely wiped out. Nor could you ever say you could, because it's like a loyalty. It's in the mind. It's like, how could you know someone's loyal or not? They just told you they weren't. So hopefully that's all that it remains. But again, what we're going to be able to do about it now? It's a done deal, right? It's like it's already happened. The United States has already bombed Venezuela. Now it's like dealing with the aftermath. And then part of this does fall in line with the Monroe Doctrine. But it's from President Trump. This quote here from the Insider paper: the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot. They now call it the Donroe Doctrine, and that is more slop. That is more of the Donald Trump put my name on everything. It's aggressive. And this is from Murray too, and so I expect this is going to be happening too. But again, I think most people we already got the idea down of this. Iran's probably going to be next. And I think part of that is because of the fact that one of the most underreported stories, I think, of this last 2 weeks was the $9 billion, or the 8.6 to be accurate, the $8.6 billion taxpayer subsidized purchase of 25 F-15 jets for Israel. What are they going to use those jets for? What did Israel lack specifically the last time they were in conflict with Iran? It's if you just like follow it from like a risk standpoint, like, and you look at it from like the numbers game of like militarily, like a lot of these things just kind of telegraph out to you like why certain moves are being made as well. And to think that like, and again, but not to rehash go back to the 12-day war, but I mean, this is all my X timeline has been, and I think it will be for the next couple of days, is going to be the fallout and what's happening with Venezuela. And yeah, I completely agree. It is going to probably get ugly, very ugly. And what I would say too is this one, and this is what I fear too, before we get into this one from Martinson, is now we have, I think, a very clean and open runway for the Democrats to pursue impeachment or Donald Trump. I hesitate to say clear, because I do think ultimately, like under the 1973 war power, I think it's the war power resolution, he still is going to be okay, because I think he did follow the correct process with the notification to Congress, which is, I'm sure that will have to be adjudicated at some point, which is there is like this strong belief, which many people like Dan McKnight, Scott Horton push for this, which is there needs to be, for a declaration of war, Congress must declare it. It can't be coming from the president. But then there's the war resolution, the war powers resolution from 1973 offers these exceptions for the president, and it's like, and one of them includes something along the lines of like notifying Congress within a timely manner for like certain limited elements of it too. And so these things I would imagine would have to be explored like in a court of law, and they probably will be. I would imagine Democrats will be pulling it up. Maybe they'll do it on preponderance of stuff too. I know impeachments typically have to be kind of more specific on charges. But they may just, I mean, with the Epstein stuff and now this, then the potential alleged like war crime that happened beforehand too. So we'll see what with that. I really don't care either way. But this is from Chris Martinson, who went major during COVID. We say this has to be a parody. On what planet does the U.S. get to charge someone in another country for violating the U.S.'s own unconstitutional machine gun laws? WTF. And that's what I thought too, actually reading through that earlier. But it's also like at the same time, he says, does the U.S. get to charge somebody? It's like there are no rules. Like there is no global court that houses between both, what's the word? I completely lost train of thought. Like there's no like global court that it's like, okay, now we're going to hear the case between the United States and Venezuela. It's like, that doesn't happen, dude. They just shoot at each other. Like it's not real. So the whole thing is like the U.S. get to charge somebody. Like, what do you mean? Like Maduro's lucky, like he wasn't like assassinated. Like I don't get this. I don't get this whole like idea of like people live in this fantasy world where like rules are like these unbreakable things, and like people have to have these extreme violations of conscience to get around them. It's like rules like literally don't mean anything to these people at all. And the more money and power you have, the more rules, just like that's what you'd say for other people to follow so they stop bothering you. It isn't there like to provide a defense for it. It's just to say like, what are you talking about? Like Maduro is owed nothing. He has no rights in this nation. And if he is like literally like deemed in a threat to the enemy, like he's an enemy of our nation, then it's like, what are you talking about? Send him to Israel to see what Israel will do with him. But again, this is more so those who are just like on this kind of typical like anti-intervention, anti-war, which at a certain point, that if that's your primary principle, then it's not, you can't be America first. So just understand that like America first is its own unique set of principles, which is like, we will do what we must for the nation's benefit, for the people's benefit, for America. Okay, well, at some points, like there will be periods of time, maybe not now, maybe not this instance, but there will be, and it's just typical, it's historical, nations will come into periods of time where it will come into resource struggles, and nations will have to do what it must to preserve its posterity for its own nation, for its own people, and for its future. And sometimes what falls under that paradigm is the fact that you do have to do things. And it's not to say that I'm celebrating this, but if your primary operating principle is anti-intervention, then your primary operating principle can't be America first, because they operate on two different axes, if you will. But that is, I mean, this, yeah. But ultimately, like this, right? That's kind of the they don't give a shit. It's all kind of us trying to picking up the pieces in the aftermath and and hoping there'll be a country here for when a lot of more of our guys start to take power and we can take it back from this global homo degenerate network. And so a lot of the kind of general anti-Trump stuff's coming out. Now, the only issue is, what will this result in, right? What will all of the, and I'm as anti-Donald Trump as it gets. The reality in being pragmatic and being realistic is, well, Democrats are going to win. Because I don't see a future in where you end up getting, what's the word? How do you get J.D. Vance as the front-running candidate and trying to run off of like the same platform of Trump without also attacking Trump? Like, you're going to have to do that to have a meaningful chance to win in 28. Especially as if the trends continue and Trump continually loses approval, people continually have a bad taste in their mouth. At some point, if the Republicans expect to win, one of those candidates will have to come out against Donald Trump. So what is that going to end up looking like? And so that's ultimately what it's going to paint out to be, is all of this anti-Trump rhetoric will just largely kind of dissolve the right wing and erode the support there in general for the base, just in the Republican sense, in the big R, dialectic. And then on the other side, Democrats are just going to push forward. They're going to be seen as like, and regardless how they'll be seen, it'll just be the fact that the majority of all elections simply are a referendum on who the previous president was. And so maybe that's what we'll get. And maybe we will all be in the gulag with Gavin Newsom. At least Gavin Newsom will be mogging people. I don't know. I just like all of this just paints itself to being a terrible, terrible future for everybody. And quite literally what Stephen Wolf said, like it is putting us all in a position to be the most beautiful of losers come in 2028. And the question is like, will there even be a chance to be able to recover from that? Because the thing is like, it is very clear that the Trump administration is not moving to where the people would like them to be. And so with no handoff to anybody to what would be like the heir of MAGA, right? The heir apparent of MAGA, which is America First, which is people like Nick Fuentes, and they're refusing to pass the baton. Well, in that breakup of transfer, because they're unwilling to don that, they're unwilling to step away, they're unwilling to even to bend the knee to like what clearly the youth and the people are demanding, the American people are demanding. And then it's just going to straight up open it up to the left taking over. And who knows what that looks like, to be honest, because it will be Gavin Newsom running more than likely. I would expect a potential AOC. I would also expect a potential Bernie Sanders final run too. So we'll see what happens with that. But none of it really seems to be boding well in the right direction, at least like in the pragmatic and realistic sense of like just Democrats having power and what occurs from there. And I also think too, probably the biggest element of that will be like the changing of guard will also probably make censorship more harsh. So probably expect like, I would expect to imagine like YouTube as well. Like YouTube will probably end up clamping down a good bit more on censorship. X would be a different story. Obviously, Elon owns that, but the pressures and the advertiser pressures would be there too. So it might just end up losing its kind of appeal to creators who can't make as much money on there too. We'll see. There's a lot that could happen from this, right? And so we're just literally in the. It's not even been like 12 hours, I don't think. Yeah, it's been less than 12 hours from the actual moment we bombed them. So we got to let some of the smoke clear to really see what's going to be the other side of that. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I could get on here and make sure I could cover this. We'll keep going to go with some of more of these reactions here, though. Have this from and also make sure you smash the like button. I must be assuming that you must be gay if you haven't smashed the like button already. Gay. Dave Smith says, well, that was the quickest regime change I've ever seen or remembered reading about. I have to admit, I'm surprised and frankly impressed that they got Maduro so quickly. A couple of things that I think are important to remember here. And this is what Dave Smith writes. This whole thing was sold on lies, like all wars. This was never about drugs, and all you have to do is look at the percentage of drugs that come from Venezuela to know that. Trump overthrew a sovereign government without authorization from Congress for reasons that he won't tell the American people, none of whom wanted this war. The most important question is always what comes next, and it's a question DC is famous for ignoring. In the case of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen, it was disaster, despite all the war hawks immediately celebrating the success. I hope what comes next is better for the people of Venezuela and the region, but I'm not optimistic. These events have a tendency to destabilize, and unlike the Middle East and North America, this is in our backyard, and we will pay a steeper price if the results are another destroyed country. So, fair points. I will say fair points, and I will say, like, he's kind of being a little bit pulled back. I would say, you know, what's funny is he had a more harsher, but he's also kind of used to it now at this point. But I remember Dave Smith in the immediate aftermath of the Iran strike. He came out and he was like, "You were all completely correct. I will vote to impeach Trump. I'll put my full support behind to impeach Trump." Like, he was just coming out like crazy against it. And so we have this here from Drew Hernandez. He says, "Wait, so a communist dictator is going to be put on trial in New York City, in the Southern District of New York?" And again, where was Epstein tried? Where were the Epstein files being? Anyways. Where a communist mayor just got elected in the communist corrupt hellhole of New York. According to Bondi, Maduro is being charged via SDNY. If Maduro walks, this is going to be absolutely horrific. And here's the thing. I don't understand at all why we're trying Maduro, period. Just put him in prison. You don't know anybody an explanation at all. Who is he being tried in front of? Certainly not his peers. It makes no sense. I'm not understanding the court case at all. It's like if you had the belief and you had enough evidence to convince you to bomb the nation and literally hoist him away physically from his country, then you damn better be sure you have enough to convict him on those same crimes that you bombed him and yanked him out of his country for. This shit just don't make no sense, dude. Like, I know, and like, and if they know they didn't have the evidence, then putting it up to a trial is even worse. That's even more of like a, what are you doing? But alas. Bowtied Ranger says, "I wish Trump would just explicitly say we took out Maduro for the oil. It's way more honest. And it's a Chad move to conquer a territory for its strategic assets, even if I disagree with the timing. For once, let's get away with the genocratic? Dude, I'm showing my wigger out. Slot messaging like we're taking out the drug traffickers when 95% of trafficked drugs come through Mexico." So, we will see. We will see. And I do kind of wish that Trump would have been a bit more honest. To be fair, I think that it would be a bit more accrediting to have just been honest about. Yeah, I know. It means female. I just didn't know if that was the right way to say that word. Like genocracy, I know that, but genocratic didn't seem right. But it would be. It would have been a lot more honest. And I think people would have respected it a bit more. I think people would have respected if you would have just like outlined like, hey, this is why we're doing this, because we fear if China does this, we would be looking at the economy suffering from this way and this way, but they don't. They just like, they scream out, like what they just wrote right there about the drug trafficking, and it's all fentanyl. And that's the thing, is just, again, this is what I guess my understanding then would be, because I've seen a couple of comments like this, people are just like outright irritated that we bombed them at all. So I guess like you would rather like have $7 gas while Somalians still rape the government for millions of dollars. I just like, at a certain point, you have to be pragmatic. You have to be realistic about what is in front of you. And so it'd be Chad to just be honest. It's not Chad that you're just like, it's Chad that you are the world power exercising your world power from a top down. But again, like I said from the very beginning, and I get people are here for the entire stream. If it is just for a pure Zio show move and purely just to install a candidate, then yeah, then it's all bullshit. But if it does fall under the element of that we are doing this to ensure that China and Russia continue to not continue clawing their way, dominating the global economy and the global markets, then is the question that you would rather live under China rule, you would rather live under Russia rule, you would rather pay for $9 gas, you would rather your basic subscriptions for everything go up, you would rather experience, because the economy we have right now in America is literally on the verge. It is on the verge. It is extremely close to imploding on itself. We have multiple bubbles. We have not only just the real estate bubble that's been propagated by the fact that we have all the immigrants driving up the demand, which is again partly artificial because a lot of the money that they're using for buying the rentals is coming from the government themselves. It's to say, like, at a certain point, you have to take your own side. And when you're faced with the fact of like, well, we can have an economy that will certainly implode, go face in on itself. I mean, what do you expect would happen to the American people? We would all suffer. I would probably rather live under Chinese rule than Jewish rule too. I don't know, actually. I don't know. I take that back, actually. I'm not sure. They're both probably pretty equally bad. But the point, though, is like, there does come a point where, you know, as an American world power, like, you thought like you would forever remain the world power without doing anything. You think you could just sit there and tell China not to do something and they'll just listen to you? At some point, like, you know, you don't weaponize the country. You don't arms manufacture for the weapons to just sit there. And this is also, to me, it's just irrespective of like world history. Like, there will always come points and times where nations will have to defend themselves, whether defensively or offensively, for their own posterity. That's why I said at the beginning, like, if your operating principle is anti-interventionist, then you can't be America first, and you're not on my team. America first is the operating principle. Any and all things that fall under that, regardless, and that is the operating principle. Now, obviously, inside that principle is Christ is King, Jesus is Lord. And so it comes attached with the tenets of Christian values. But inside of there, you still have what is allowed in the defense of what a nation is to be. What a nation is supposed to do. What a nation is supposed to. But again, I think so many people are just living in a non-realistic sense of how things operate, like the pragmatic sense. And that was one thing that Jeff Younger beat out of me, you know, having a lot more of these kind of like aims out there. But the thing is ultimately, though, if it is nation building, right? So this is the thing. Some people are saying imperialism. So if it is nation building, right? If it is, then some of these arguments get stronger. But that's the point. We have to wait and see. And if people just want to be mad and scream and rage, and that's fine. I guess I get it. I mean, at a certain point, though, I feel like it's just, what's the point? You know, like, at a certain point, like, I guess the complaining to me doesn't really help. We have to be able to move forward, and you have to be aware of what's happening, why it's happening, because none of us certainly have control or anything near anything close to a level of power, what's happening in Venezuela or in our own government. And I don't think what's going to change that is arguing over between people who have no control of what's going on. I think it's more better to be well-rounded with the aspect of, if you want to be an anti-interventionist state, we would have to make some extreme changes. You would have to, for one, America wouldn't be able to sustain itself at its population size. There'd have to be some extreme, but again, these are all things that are like, there are so many things that involve themselves with a nation's posterity, from energy to just typical resources to obviously minerals, but also beyond there, like certain metals and the exports, the imports, the food, the agriculture, the weather. That I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't care about anything besides America. I want America to be the best nation that it always has been. I want the America to be the continuation of what every ancestor sacrificed for, which is the greatest and freest nation on planet Earth. And I don't understand how you can be the greatest and freest nation on Earth if you allow China to become the world power. If China becomes the world power and they start bombing the fucking shit out of the United States, well, guess what? Like, we're not the world power anymore, and all of America disappears. It's gone. We go extinct overnight. And then the anti-interventionists, all of the, oh, go, please, not the third world countries. Please don't attack the brown people because I want to have this principle locked up in my head. It means nothing. It does nothing. It helps nobody, actually. And it's not to be like rude or to be mean to anybody, but it is to say like at a certain point, like we have to be realistic with what is on the table, what's in front of us, and what actually is effective, and what it does mean to be a nation, and where we are in the world, and what it means when other nations start gaining power and being and actually moving into our territories. And I get it. It's a tough call. It's a tough call to say. It's a tough call to say, like, you know, we need to bomb these people and do this, but somebody's got to make those calls. And to act as if a nation can't do things in its own interest is just, it's wild. And we need to be able to, and here's the thing, maybe this is the better way to say it. We need to be able to separate those things from the fact that Trump is doing them. You need to be able to separate the fact that a thing, an item that may benefit America, separate from the person who is doing it. But again, I just fear what will happen in the aftermath, like what Dave Smith had said, because I do fear it could very quickly fold in on itself, and we find ourselves in another one of these just absolutely massive, like, you know, refugee crises, and just any kind of more destabilization, or maybe it's something that'll come out of left field that no one's really kind of expecting, some kind of economic crisis that occurs that has a domino effect in different regions. It's hard to tell. I mean, when you're messing with this many people, with this many systems, it's hard to even begin to have an accurate kind of predictive model, besides just going back to previous regions and previous conflicts and going, well, this is what happened then and there, and these were the people who were ruling them. But yeah, good thing you had pointed out too, Hook, with the silver shorts. That's one thing I'd seen that was also driving some of these narratives in the kind of the world power struggle conversation, which is that it does seem to be that there are a lot of reports and fears that it's the world silver supply seems to be largely absorbed by China. So, and yeah, I did see that the Fed injected again, I think twice. I think we've now had two of the biggest cash infusions from the Fed into the banking system since COVID, and they both happened in the last week or two. So it's just to say, like, the economic system of ours is like literally like a breath of air away from blowing the whole thing down. And so that's why I'm like, I can care very little about the principle of not being an interventionist country, when on the other side of that is, well, if we don't do that and we don't shore up our own ability of resources and our posterity, it's like, well, then the whole thing falls apart. Then you have an anarchy. And then what's going to happen when a country's filled with 110 million illegal immigrants? I mean, we're going to have a fight, dude. We're going to have to literally fight. We're going to have to fight for the land again. It's not a good situation at all. But wanted to make sure I could get something out there to react to that in real time for what I did see. I appreciate everybody for showing up again. I will be jumping over. Going to be meeting up with Josh later today. He's coming to Ohio, and so there's no Gripper report tonight either. But then Sunday's show is also still up in the air, but wanted to make sure I did something today earlier, especially in the aftermath of all this. Been reading and watching. I'd imagine many of you guys are doing the same as well too, and then offer my thoughts of what we had so far. But again, no Gripper report tonight, but we should be getting some IRL footage, me and Josh. I'm going to try not to include the other guy because he probably wouldn't want to be on there. But it will be some IRL content. We'll see what we can do, see where we go, see what Somalians we can find with fraud, and we'll see what happens with that. But with that, Christ is king, as always. Deport Kash Patel, jail him if we have to, deport Pam Bondi, and chain her to the kitchen sink along with every other woman over 100 and some pounds. But man, God willing, and I would say this too, I would pray for our nation right now, because despite anyone arguing and bickering, the back and the forth, all of that, I would pray heavily for our nation and what is to come, because what may be on the other side of the actions that took place last night may be a lot of things that Americans are not ready to deal with. And so just pray for pray for our nation, pray for the people, pray for, again, our posterity, And just pray that people who are in positions of power make the right decisions, and pray as much as possible that Jesus is the one that's guiding them. Because man, it can get really bad really quickly, especially when we get close to these World War III tensions. But I appreciate you guys. As always, Christ is King, and I will see you guys more than likely on Sunday, either in video or on stream. All right, guys, take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.